My boss left me dirty phone voicemails, so I played them for his wife. When I was in college, I had a minimum wage job in a bargain retail store. I worked in the warehouses around a lot of older guys, and the job required heavy lifting, usually between 75 to 250 pounds of pallets and boxes. I started off working in the warehouse, and it motivated me to start lifting weights seriously. I lost 26 pounds over the course of my first 6 months there by working out solo at the campus gym. However, most of my co-workers were older guys, while I was around 23 or 24 at the time, and we had very little in common. I rarely talked to anyone else, but I did want to be seen as one of the cool guys. So it was strange but an honor when the manager of the fleet of delivery trucks, we'll call him Victor, approached me at work one day and started conversing with me. Victor was older, 45 I think, but he was well respected by everyone in the warehouse. He dressed well and seemed pretty fit. In the course of the conversation, we discussed lifting weights together, and he invited me over to his home gym one day. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to lift together on a Friday when his wife, who we'll call Nora, was at work. I showed up at his house with one of my favorite t-shirts on. Victor was shirtless. He suggested that I lift with no shirt as well. I felt uneasy about that and said no. Victor snatched my shirt by the left sleeve and pulled it until it ripped. He apologized, promised to buy another shirt for me, and I had to lift with no shirt on. We worked chest and triceps, but throughout the lift I felt uncomfortable. Victor kept touching my chest and my stomach. He said it was to focus, and I kept pushing it to the back of my head, but I did decline to go inside Victor's house. I left my ripped shirt at his house in the garage where his weight set was located. Over the next few days, the awkwardness increased. Victor asked during phone calls if I had a girlfriend, if I was doing the deed regularly, if I watched any particular adult material. He ran into me in the break room at work during my lunch break and would always sit close to me and just talk about really personal stuff. I learned that his wife was a pastor at a prominent church and that she made more money than Victor, and that Nora did not believe in doing the deed outside of procreation. When I asked about my shirt being replaced, Victor always said he had money problems. I ended up replacing the shirt myself later on. Victor invited me over again to work out with him. I wore a tank top that time, and Victor asked me to take it off. I did. And during the workout, he mentioned that he was behind on his electric bill. He asked if he could borrow $40 and said that he and his wife were having a rough patch, so he couldn't borrow from her. I went to the nearest bank, withdrew the money, and put $40 in Victor's hand after the workout. He promised to pay me back at payday. Payday came and went, but Victor's presence did not. I received late night, like after 10 p.m. phone calls from Victor. When I answered, he would sound drunk and talked endlessly, occasionally talking about my body. I stopped answering his calls and I got voicemails from him, also sounding drunk, asking me to call him back. When I confronted Victor at work to stop calling me and pay me back, 2 days after payday, he told me he'd pay me back next payday and that he just really needed a friend to talk to. I felt bad, agreed to wait, but also made up an excuse about how I couldn't lift weights with him. He didn't pay me back the following payday either, but Victor did send me a thread of pictures with his shirt off, in his underwear, and a couple completely undressed, all within a week of payday. When that third payday came, Victor avoided me at work. So here was my revenge. Infuriated with his harassment and not being paid, I went to Facebook the day after payday and found Victor's wife's Facebook page and her church's Facebook page. I created a Gmail account with Victor's full name, then created a Facebook page with his first name and last initial, and uploaded all of the photos he had sent me. Then I friended his wife and the church's Facebook pages, set all settings to friends-only level privacy, and logged out. That same night, I called our company's ethics hotline and left a voicemail tip. Mr. Victor F. is drinking very heavily and making lewd comments to co-workers and customers. Please look into this. Within a week, Victor was fired. Not only had he been drinking on the job and sometimes come to work hungover, he had been using corporate gas cards to fuel his and his wife's vehicles. He was arrested during his shift, and several employees saw him walking out in handcuffs. I unfortunately didn't see this. Victor called me, drunk again, from his hotel room after his wife kicked him out of their house. Not satisfied with this level of revenge, I recorded Victor's voicemails into a handheld recorder I'd brought from my college classes, and I mailed the recorder, using Victor's home address as the return address, to his wife's church and marked it as, "Attention, Nora F., press play." And then I changed phone numbers. I haven't heard from Victor in years, but his firing was the talk of the store for months. In short, he owed me money and tried to make me his honey. He got very rough and did a bad touch. So I ruined his life. Was it funny? I don't know that it was funny. This was a guy who was clearly very lonely and in a marriage that he was very unhappy with, even if he wasn't taking action to get out of it. Well, you ruined Victor's life, but it sounds like he might have done most of the work himself. Yeah. Look, Victor, I'm sorry, but having a wife that doesn't put out doesn't mean that you just get to go and hit on people at work who clearly aren't interested. You needed to talk to your wife, and if she wasn't open to some therapy or maybe something more drastic like at least opening the marriage up for you at least, maybe you guys should have looked at divorce for both of your sakes. Then again, she's a minister, and maybe she wasn't letting him leave for the sake of her image. Nonetheless, regardless of the reasons behind it, Victor was the bad guy here and was taking his unhappiness out on an innocent party. Get sober and get therapy, Victor. You need it. Father's Day compliance. Exactly 18 years ago to the date, I was over at Dad's house and I needed a wrench. Coming from a long line of mechanics, I know he has one available, and as I didn't have my kit in my car, I asked to borrow one. Dad, of course, said yes, and handed me the mechanic's toolbox, just out of habit. I opened it and immediately noticed that a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench was missing. Again, I come from a long line of mechanics, and every tool should have its place, be it in a drawer, box, or outlined on a pegboard. And I thought it was weird that Dad had lost the wrench out of his spare and house toolkit. So I said, "You're missing the 7/16, showing him the missing slot. Now Dad, being Dad, just had to bust on me a bit, so looked me dead in the eyes and beaming a huge smile, he responded, "It was there when I gave it to you." Mind you, I hadn't left the kitchen. I hadn't so much as shifted my feet. I knew he was lying, he knew he was lying, but it had been ingrained in me since childhood that losing a tool is a death sentence. Now, I knew he was messing me around and I let it go, but from that day forward, anytime we needed something, he'd make comments like, "Sure wish I had that 7/16 wrench that Paul lost," or, "You know what would fix it? That missing 7/16 wrench." This went on for months, so one day he made the usual "tease me for losing a tool" comment, and I warned him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Say it one more time, old man, and you're going to get a wrench every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of your natural life." A few hours passed, and I asked him to hand me a tool, and he said, "I can't, you lost it, remember?" I laughed and played it off, but it was on, and that was 18 years ago. Today, being Father's Day, he had just received his 52nd Craftsman's ratchet end 7/16 wrench. Since that day, he's tried telling me that he knows that I didn't lose it, and I knew that already, and that I don't need to buy another one. Oh, but I fricking do. And he's occasionally tried to say it was a different size or item to get a different present, but we both know that's not happening. They're everywhere. Every coffee can, junk drawer, cabinet, toolbox, pegboard, or spare nail in the house and garage contains a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench. You know how they say you're never more than 8 feet from a spider? Well, in Dad's world, you're never more than 7 feet from a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench, because there's at least 2 in his truck at this point as well. When will it end? When the old bastard dies. The last wrench will go in his cold, dead hand so he can tighten bolts in hell, because I warned him. God damn it, I warned him. Happy Father's Day to all of you with weird traditions, jokes, and relationships with the man who made you who you are today. And if you need a wrench, hit me up. I know a guy. In short, Dad teased me about losing a tool that he lost, and I've replaced it, as of today, 52 times. Too far? Am I the jerk? Well, the author sounded dead serious in that last section about following him to his grave, but honestly, this just sounds like a really funny running joke at this point. I hope your old man milks it and feigns complete excitement and cluelessness at what the present could be this year. He's already kind of admitted that he knows you didn't lose it, and he crossed the Rubicon after you gave him a very, very clear warning. So I'd say he knows that he was the one who basically made this happen. I do wonder how your mum feels about the entire house being decked out in wrenches. I can't imagine that going down well with my mum. So I'd say there isn't a jerk here, just a fun father-son running gag that's probably kind of annoying to everyone else, but is ultimately harmless. Your old pa might try to sell them on. Then maybe you can give him endless crap for losing your gift. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A Stitch in Time. I have been binge-watching videos of entitled parent stories, and I really wanted to contribute one myself. I haven't yet been able to remember any experiences of my own, so I asked a Japanese-American friend of mine, we'll call her I, because I know she grew up with a mum who was a real piece of work. She shared one of her "you won't believe what my mum did" stories with me, and I thought it might work here. So here's the background. So I's mother is a native Japanese. She was born there, immigrated to the US after college, speaking almost fluent English. I'm not sure if she specifically came to marry I's dad, or if they both met while they were here. That detail is a bit fuzzy to me. I do know that they married within a few years of her coming here, and I was their only child, although I think her dad had a son from a previous relationship. Now, I was both spoiled and somewhat messed up by her mother, which I hope I'll be able to explain. Her mum was always very concerned about how the family looked to outsiders. Their house had to look like a magazine was coming later to take photos for its next issue. The parents each had a car, and they always had to look brand new. Her dad was always getting hassled if he dared to wear a pair of pants with a single loose thread, and the mother herself was always wearing expensive clothes, makeup, with her hair done perfectly. I'm sure you get the picture. And I think the mother saw I as an extension of herself. From babyhood till almost her teen years, I had to be constantly dressed up. Imagine how a small child might look for a fancy party or for an important photo. Pricey dress, big bow in the hair, matching Mary Janes, and that's how I had to look all the time. She wasn't allowed to ever get dirty and was expected to have endless tea parties with her expensive dolls, I guess. From the outside, I probably looked like she had it made. Nice clothes, wealthy family, a dad who worshipped her, the most popular toys, and a mum who was very much ahead of the parent-teacher association, involved type. But the truth was, I felt stifled, even unloved by her mother. I is smart and always got good grades, but her mother would complain about anything lower than an A+. If I asked to wear jeans so she could play outside, Mum guilted her about how expensive her dresses were and told her she had all the latest toys, she could play with them indoors. I had her own laptop and smartphone before others of her age generally do, but this wasn't to make her happy. It was because it made the family look good for a girl not yet in her teens to have a MacBook and iPhone. And she had no say in her wardrobe until she was at least 13, at which time her maternal grandmother, who I adored, gave her a green suede jacket, which I never saw, but I said it was the one piece of clothing she ever had that she loved the most. One day she came home from school, intending to grab the jacket before walking her neighbor's dog. She was doing this because the neighbors were on vacation, and she just couldn't find the green suede jacket. I asked her mum, who said, "Oh, there was a hole in that couldn't be fixed, so I threw it away. We don't wear damaged clothes in this family." I was really upset, not least because her mum didn't seem sad about it in the least. Next time she visited her grandma, she told her grandmother about the jacket, and to cheer her up, Grandma showed I her favorite kimono, which I never saw either, but I said was a deep brown and patterned with trees and leaves all in gold. Just absolutely gorgeous. And Grandma told her, "When you die, you can have this kimono to make up for what you've lost, and to remember me." At this, I felt a little better, and to help her get her mind off the lost jacket, the grandmother spent the afternoon showing her pictures and telling her family stories that she hadn't heard before. When I was 17, her grandmother died after a fairly short illness. Something to do with her lungs, I think. I had been visiting her in the hospital daily, doing everything she could for Grandma, and had to do it alone because her mother was, quote, busy, and basically couldn't be bothered to do anything for her own dying mother. At the funeral, she put on a big show of grief to get attention and to be consoled, but I said the funeral was the only time she saw her mum cry over Grandma. and those tears were either partly or entirely fake. Her mum showed up for the reading of the will, though, and openly showed dissatisfaction with the bequest left to her. Some amount of money, I don't know how much, and she complained that I was left any money at all, although it had been set up in an account only I could access and not until her 18th birthday. I think Grandma put in safeguards so that entitled mother couldn't get any of that money. The will also listed some property, including the aforementioned kimono. I was so happy to be reminded that she was getting it, but after reading, her mother went up to her and said, "I hope you don't think you're getting that kimono. I'm her eldest daughter and I deserve it." While the family was still grieving, her mum was invited by some friends on a vacation somewhere tropical, supposedly to get her mind off the grief. Yeah, right. So she jetted off, basically leaving I to sort through and divide her grandmother's belongings by herself. She spent days in the house that was filled with a lifetime of paperwork and belongings, finally coming across the well-stored kimono that she had been shown years ago. This was when her very justified revenge began. When her mum returned from the trip, she saw that some of her grandmother's belongings had been placed around the house and in I's room, so she went to her daughter to demand the brown and gold kimono. With an expression of absolute innocence, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mother. There was a hole in that couldn't be repaired, so I had to throw it away. After all, we don't wear damaged clothes in this family, right?" I wishes, and so do I, that she had a picture of her mother's facial expression at that moment. Understand, this was not just a sentimental keepsake or a pretty dress for a party. Old kimonos, if well made and in good condition, can be sold to collectors for many thousands of dollars, which was probably what her mum had been planning to do. She started to speak several times, kept getting so flustered that her words wouldn't come out, and finally, she just walked away. I didn't get in any trouble. Her dad would have stepped in if she had. She'd just been following her family rule, right? When I told me this story, I said, "Shame about the kimono, though, that it was ruined," and I laughingly informed me that the kimono is in flawless condition. She keeps it stored in a hidden compartment in her closet. The will is clear, and her mum could get in legal trouble if she tried to take it. After she moves out of her parents' house, I plans to send her mother photos of herself in the kimono, which apparently looks amazing on her. No one has been sent to jail, yet at least. There was no violence, but I found this story pretty satisfying. I hope that it's pleased you, listeners. In short, a mother carelessly throws away her daughter's favorite jacket, claiming it's unfixable. Her daughter pretends to do the same with an heirloom kimono that the mum was wanting to inherit. Well done, I. That's some satisfying revenge on your stifling mother. I'll be completely honest, I'm surprised that she didn't just gloss over the fact that her own rule was thrown back in her face. I feel like most of our Karens and entitled parents do not give a single crap when they break their own rules. So it's honestly kind of surprising for her to keep it together in the heat of the moment when she believes that she's just missed out on a few $1,000s worth of kimono. The mother kind of sounds like a crazy helicopter parent. I would guess that I may well end up going with no contact with her when she leaves home. And we'll see about Dad. Maybe societal pressure will be enough to keep him in the household with her. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that I make more than both my siblings when they told me to get a real job? I'm a nanny to 2 special needs kids. There's a very high demand for nannies for special needs kids because 3 special needs daycares in my county shut down. So I make approximately $120K a year and live in the family's guest house rent-free. And they bought me a car so I can drive the kids around. My parents have the belief that any job in childcare isn't a real job. They went so far as to call my aunt, who majored in child development, and had her tell me how broke she is when I said I wanted to major in early childhood education. Then they told me I could either pick an acceptable major or they wouldn't pay for my college. I cut contact with them for a while in college, and we recently started talking again. I've been in contact with my siblings, though. My parents recently asked about my job and education and were not happy when I said I was a nanny and had my master's in special education. They made a comment that I'm working the same job that I've had since I was 15 and how I'll be broke forever, and then told me to get a real job like my brother, who's an accountant, and my sister, who's a nurse. I was angry and told my parents that I make more than both my brother and sister and I don't have to pay for rent, car payments, or gas. They hung up and I got a text from my sister saying I made her look bad to our parents. My brother said I should have just kept my mouth shut. Am I the jerk for telling my parents how much I make? Maybe a tiny bit for framing it in comparison to your siblings when you know how awful and single-minded your parents are about money being the most important thing, But we'll put that down to you snapping at your folks when they just wouldn't quit having a go at you for your very worthy career choice. I wonder if they immediately flipped 180 degrees and started badgering your accountant and nurse siblings to quit their jobs and take up caring for disabled children instead, if that's where the money is. I'd guess not. They're probably just a bit put out by the lack of glamour your job has in their eyes. Your siblings should probably just take a leaf out of your book and keep on doing whatever they want to do in any case. Your folks don't deserve to lord it over your life choices like this. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.